Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? So today's episode is transformation time. This is an episode where we get to hear about people's personal development journeys and their mindset shifts, which I think it's so important to help us to keep on raising the bar and really smashing through those ceilings so that we can get to the levels that we want to get, because usually that's basically how it is, right? Is usually we have to do a mindset shift, change our way of thinking to be able to, you know, change that mindset and head into a new type of reality that we want. Hey Alex, okay, I can see Alex is on. Just give me a second to make the request. I can. Struggling, guys. I don't know why I'm struggling. Invite. You can do it. I don't know why I can't ask you. Hey Alex, do you wanna send a request? For some reason I can't request you to come in. I'm not sure why. Unless if you want to see me continue to struggle to try to invite you. I don't know. I can't do it. Hey Alex, can you hear me? Because I can't seem to invite you for some reason. And you're not. I see you there, Alex, but for some reason you're not talking to me. Okay, guys, I'm going to wait for Alex to, I guess, make the request. For some reason I can't request it. Maybe can you send the request, Alex? Or maybe there's a delay. Because I can't seem to request you to come in. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, guys, I'm gonna start over again. I'll be back. Gonna see what's going on. Oh, okay, never mind. I guess you're able to. There we go. I guess temporary glitch.
I think we're live.
Yeah, temporary glitch, I guess. I was like, I don't know why it's not letting me.
So, in my old fashion, I was trying to do this on my laptop, but I guess it's gonna have to be on the phone.
Oh, maybe that's why it wouldn't let me. Yeah, I don't think you can do it on I think you have to do it on the phone. So how have you been?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. It's definitely been rough and busy and rough couple of weeks, or a couple of months, I should say, maybe. Just numerous projects going all over the place. Some of them have come to completion, but yeah, it has been somewhat challenging past couple of months, I can say that.
Like, what kind of challenges have you been
It's just
facing?
putting out small fires all over the place. That's really it. It's just dealing with contractors. It's some that are not delivering to what they've committed. Fixing problems as I go, delays.
Well, the
Nothing.
usual, basically, for us.
Pardon me?
I said the usual. Like, I think what we're always having to deal with, it's like I don't
The
think a
usual,
project can ever go without a hitch. There's always going to be something there, right?
the usual in many way compounded. I guess just because there's multiple projects on the go. So yeah, I mean it is what it is. They've come to completion at this point, but yeah, the usual times multiple projects, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Multiplying that with so many projects makes it really uh it shows once you're really growing your business like that and you're working like say more than one project at a time, that's like basically you hitting a new ceiling, and then you're dealing with just like coordinating and figuring out and how to deal with these problems and things like that.
That's yeah, that's exactly it. It's interesting how like there's certain projects that I've been more hands-on, so I get into the nitty-gritty details, and then there's certain projects such as the one in like the Chatham region that I have a partner there that's probably far more involved on the ground level. But yet I'm coordinating certain other aspects, the permitting process, engineering, the drawings and discussions with the city. And it is a different discussion there. So it's like always kind of adapting down or, going through, did a walkthrough, and it had been about a month since I'd been through those projects, and I did a walkthrough on them. And, I just kind of wanted, like, I was tempted to get into some details, and then I'm like, wait, this is not my domain. I need to back off here. This is not, my cup of tea here. And there are people now that are kind of handling those details. We managed to get contractors in place to deal with some of those things. But yeah, it's just always adapting to the project, depending on what level of how hands-on you were on that project.
Or even
But
like you're saying, you're becoming more hands off to like the really in details thing. So it's even just like learning that in its own, right? To like let them do the work, and you're, dealing at the on more higher level type of problems. And it's like that transition is always also very hard because you're just like used to being involved, and then it's like, no, it's not my job to do that anymore. Let them do it.
yeah, exactly. I've often been asked, there's always discussions with investors, especially new investors, like, how do you find a good general contractor? How do you find a good contractor? And, I can definitely recommend a few now, and I can definitely recommend some that you should not talk to. But the answer is how you find it is through multiple projects, through doing different projects, whether you're inclined in project managing and therefore controlling your own sub trades or dealing with GCs only. You find it through trial and error. Like, it may come at the cost of some profitability on certain projects to find the GCs you shouldn't be working with, and then look for another one, and then once you find a good one, yeah, definitely grow them. I currently have a general contractor that I'm quite happy with, that is worked on 2 of my projects that have now completed, and they're working on a 3rd, and I think I have a 4th lined up for them as well.
All right.
So, it does get better, I guess is the point.
Yeah. And I think like that, and I think one of the things that I also noticed that happens with a lot of people is that they don't realize, especially like that when it's like the first project with a contractor, um, that they really have to be very, very involved and talking in the sense of like knowing what's going on. Like a lot of people for some reason think like, oh, I got a GC, they're gonna take care of everything and make all the decisions. And you realize like that's not the reality, right? You have to be very involved until like you guys kind of mesh and get to know what each other's like wants and needs are, because a GC is only going to do to what their past experiences are, and that may not be like your style of what you want the renovation to be, and so I've noticed a lot that with people that they will like, oh yeah, I hired this person. I paid them a lot of money, so they must be good, and and then let them to their own devices. And it's just like just because they're a GC and you pay them a lot of money doesn't mean that you're not supposed to be involved and telling them what you need. Like they're there for the expertise of making sure that it gets done right, but the decisions that need to be made and to make sure that you get what you want, it's all on us, And I've noticed that's the main thing. Like they disappear, the investor will disappear. They come back, like a month or 2 later, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is all done wrong." And you're just like, "How did you not realize that?" Like the week or 2 in, like you need to do a checkup every so often to like make sure. Because if you say like, and I see it like that, you say like, "Oh, do a bathroom." They're going to do the bathroom whatever way they want to do it. The
Yeah.
cheapest way and the fastest way, right? Or like whatever it is that they want to do, right? Whatever is they're used to building, let's say a bathroom, for example.
And I've always said this is that doing these regular walkthroughs and like I don't know, I may be exaggerated, but I haven't had this GC that I have now a good relationship with. I've not had him complain about this. Maybe they're holding out, but my blood boils if 2 or 3 days go by without going by some of these projects. And it allows, so the when I say that they're a good general contractor, it's not that they're perfect. Every time I walk through, or not every time, but quite often as I walk through, I'll identify either a problem in the workmanship or just something that needs to be addressed in a slightly different way. And so that'll happen with a good or a bad GC. The distinction is what their reaction is. How do they handle that complaint? How do they handle that objection? You know, are they on top of it? Are they courteous? Are they, or informative? Hey, I can do that. And I'm, in this case, I'm adding a fireplace to a project that was never intended to have a fireplace. Right on the bat, like as I'm talking to them, can you quantify what the cost adders are? About $3,000. Okay, boom, done. Like I can move forward knowing that, or I can say, no, I'm good. I don't need the fireplace anymore. But it's not coming after the fact. Like, you know what I mean? Like the just project continues. The electricians are there.
I would say is exactly what you're saying, right? Communication, and not on, and people always think just the contractor, both sides, right? Like the contractor can communicate all they want, but if they still don't, if you don't communicate back to them, like so it comes like both sides, you know, like communication. I feel like you're right. You know, like problems will always happen. Doesn't matter if you have an amazing GC, problems will always come up. But it's like communication is one of them on both sides. Like if they're communicating and things are going wrong, you may want to look at yourself and maybe be like, okay, I'm not telling you, I'm not actually conveying what I want properly, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what was the other thing? There's another thing, communication and yeah, like exactly what you're saying. If you ask them questions and they get like irritated, they're probably not a good contractor.
Yeah.
I know some of them will be like, you know, they kind of get like, why are you questioning me? I know exactly, like, I'm an amazing GC. I know what I'm doing. And it's like, but I don't know what you do. That's why I'm asking questions to understand, you know? And I feel like I've seen that also happen with a lot of investors where they'll get upset because they ask a question and their electrician, their GC, their whoever gets like very standoffish and angry. And then it's like, to me, I'm just like, probably look for someone else, because if they don't like answering questions, that's probably a problem.
Yeah, that would be that would be a problem with me, because I do ask a lot of questions, and I
Me too.
I mean,
Me too. I am
yeah.
like, I love to like especially learn and understand it, right? So I like ask so many questions. So yeah, for me those are like my two main things. I'm like, if I ask you questions and you're getting irritated with my questions, I'm like, probably not a good sign. For me at least, right? And then like thinking communication is so important, and at least with myself, I'm always working on communication, because usually like that, it's always two sides, right? It's like both sides need to communicate, because if you're both speaking different languages, I mean, like, who's interpreting? You need a third person to help interpret, you know?
Indeed, yes.
But hey, we got a little off topic. Let's talk about you and tell people where you are at right now, in the sense of like, yeah, like where are you at right now in your real estate journey?
Yeah, I guess I might as well start off with that. So I'm currently doing real estate investments as I don't know, full time, and this is I've quit my 9 to 5 job, my previous life, and this is my focus now, as far as, I don't know, being passionate about it and earning and you know, bringing a paycheck in some form.
How long
So
have
I'm
you been a
currently,
full-time real estate investor for now?
sorry.
How long have you been a full-time real estate investor now?
So I've quit my job as far back as only January this past year. So it's coming up on a year now. As far as, yeah, doing this full time, I've became heavily active as a real estate investor. Basically, roughly about January 2020. So it's now been 2 years, one of which I was still working, and you know, in the midst of COVID, at the peak of COVID, and so yeah, I did a couple of projects in 2020, and then I, you know, sort of ramped up in 2021 for the past 12 months or so. prior to that, I've always dabbled into real estate investments, primarily as a non-active, buy and hold strategy. Owned a couple of rentals. One for quite a few years. It was happily rented, earning whatever cash flow of, minimal cash flow and mortgage pay down. I ended up, I think, burring it out, doing the burst strategy on this property without even knowing what the hell it was. Like I was informed by the bank that I can get more money out of it because it's worth more. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. This was a number of years ago. I also got involved in a couple of pre-built condos, which are yet to be closed on.
Oh my God, how long have you been there for?
Sorry?
How long has it been that you've waiting for
Oh,
it to
man. It's been so 2018 now. So yeah, it's gonna be 4 years by the time we close on these things. Yeah, so I mean that was again, that was all with the real estate investment mindset, but not an active one per se until about 2 years ago when I started I did my first duplex conversion. I did my first flips in the past couple of years, and then in the past 12 months, basically I ramped up at a point where we're doing our own marketing, we're doing our own off-market sourcing of deals as well as wholesaling. At this point, I think that I have two flips currently on the market. One is I guess a third project is on the market as a rental, as a duplex conversion. I'm trying to get it filled up. I think I might be a little bit on the high end on my ask there, but I'm willing to hang in there a little bit longer before I drop that. And then I still have I guess 5 active projects on the go.
And that's your full time doing it, because that'd be crazy to do that with a job.
Yeah, no. That had to go. I saw the light. I guess it was after I did my first duplex conversion. Once I rented it out and I was able to refinance and do the appraisal and refinance and pull out most of my capital, I kind of really bought into it in the sense that, yes, this is a viable business opportunity. I can do more of these, or I can do a combination of family conversions and flips. So I started looking for mentorship, for guidance, for a way to be able to get off the tools. Phone keeps ringing. I apologize. And that was my real estate agent on one of the listings that's live right now, but I'm going to have to call her back. Yeah. So it was roughly about June, July 2020. Once I completed that first duplex, I looked for mentorship, and once I got in the right room and was able to obtain some guidance and see that there is a way to make this into a proper business and not be on the tools, not have to renovate. And I saw the opportunity there, but I realized that if I did it all myself, I could do maybe 2 of these a year, maybe 3 at best. And it just sort of, by comparison to by the end of this year, it would have been 10 projects that I was involved in. So, it's coming at a cost, it's coming at a different level of stress, a different strategy, a different level of project management, but I'm enjoying every bit of it. Despite what at times I might act a little tired.
You may want to strangle someone.
Yeah, you could put it that way. I actually thought of this, so I'm going to take the opportunity and say it now, is that there's probably a lot of other good qualities that you should have, that you want to have in order to develop, to be a successful businessman. But one of them, what I'm realizing now is, I don't know, it's like a level of patience combined with accepting, making the right business decisions whereby mediocrity gets paid, even though it's not really deserving of that. And so there's 3 instances, the whole idea of cash for keys, which I've recently done, kills me. I'm still not okay with that, but it is the right business move. I've had break-ins. Again, nothing you can do about it. You almost have to budget for it in certain neighborhoods. And, they'll steal $1,000 worth of crap, tools, whatever it is. And then it's bad contractors that do not deserve, that have may have delayed a project that probably don't deserve to get their full pop, but it's so easy for them to put a lien on your house that you got to just pay them. Because we're talking to the tune of 10 to 15, $20,000, whatever it is. And they could put a lien on your house. And when you go to sell it, you know, like the potential buyer, like now they get red flags. What's going on here? Like just the settlement afterwards, it's still, in my opinion, not enough to go into a small claims court scenario for me to sue them. And if I don't pay them, they put a lien on it so easily that it just, the right business decision is to pay them, but it kills me. It just absolutely kills me.
Yeah. Those things, that's very hard to deal with. That's true, especially because it kind of goes against your morals. You know, it's just like this person doesn't deserve to get paid because they didn't do the job, or, you know, they get a portion, yes, because they did some of it, but they didn't finish or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, but then it kind of goes against your morals because then they're just like, they're trying to take, their money. They're trying to take money. And, you know, like it's such a conflict, right, in between the.
They're still getting paid the exact same amount, whether or not the profit is the project is profitable. And I understand that makes sense. I'm the business owner. Like that's definitely valid with employees. If you're hiring somebody on a salary or hourly wage, whether or not you're profitable on a project, you still need to pay them if they've done the work until to the point where you go bankrupt and that's, or whatever. But as like with another contractor, when they, you know, negotiated, like one of the examples that I actually can give is my windows at the Chatham project. They must have dragged us on for at least another 3 months, and the windows were ready. They were poorly installed, just back and forth, and you could tell that they're just. And I know somebody else. I actually recommended this contractor, this window installer, to somebody else that's seeing the brunt of it right now, and I feel terrible because this is a close friend of mine that's, you know, his project is heavily delayed by the same contractor. So I recommended him prior to me going through this. And at the end of it all, I still had to pay them. It delayed my siding. It delayed, you know, all the other components, like even some of the trim work internal to the window. Until the window gets installed, you can't do the window casing. So those delays, I don't have a way to quantify what my losses are on that, except for to speculate, and which doesn't hold up in any sort of court. But I know that they're there, the stress factor, and then they still got paid the exact same amount because it's so easy for them to lock me up to a point where I can't refi, I can't sell, I can't do anything until I pay them.
Oh, you can't? Oh, yeah, you're right. You can't refi? Actually, I never thought of that. But yeah, I guess you wouldn't be able to refi either. You wouldn't be able to, like,
pardon me?
So you cannot refi?
Like, I don't think a conventional bank will ever go behind a contractor, so you'd have to pay them out first. And then a B lender, or like a.
Does it go behind? I don't think you'd go behind. Isn't a lien like considered like third or fourth or whatever in place?
Potentially, but not when it's already in place. So if there is a lien on it already, then the bank coming in, when they do a title, they will pull a title search on it to see what else is going.
Yeah.
And they're not going to like this. They're going to want this settled out before, because they want to know that if I default on the mortgage, they get paid first, not that contractor.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they're never going to entertain that. Like this was so, you know, in the grand scheme of things, the amount is relatively minimal, but it kills the moral aspect of it. Like, why are you getting paid? Why is there no penalty on your end?
I know that's really hard. It is hard, especially if people are like scamming and things, or not. I don't know if scamming is the right word, but like they don't finish the job, and you know they're still getting paid what they want, and it's just kind of like.
I don't know that it starts off in a malicious way, but it ends that way. It's a lack of, you know, care for the project, like just no accountability. That's just, you can get away with it. So in this case, and I've seen this quite a lot, it's a relatively new company or combination, like you know, they've left a different company and they started this out. And there's such demand that they've committed to a whole lot of jobs, collected even a 10% down payment. They committed to the windows being put on order. And now it's just whatever they can make it work to install. They don't care. Like, they know that you're committed, so you have to wait. And then the
Yeah.
minute there's a screw up because they screwed up one of the windows that was supposed to get installed, they put you at the back of the line. Like, you're not going at the front.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's hard. And I think that's the hardest when you're finding new contractor or new suppliers, I would say. Uh, because it's true that like I do know that there's even, for example, like I hear this happens a lot in renovations where you'll come and this person will be like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm gonna, renovate your property or whatever. Let's say like do a kitchen. Like let's say for customers, I'm gonna do your kitchen and then they don't even work consistently on it. And it's like they come and then they disappear for a couple days or a few days and they come and uh, I feel like that, like those kind of things you can only learn by trial, to be honest, because a lot of people do that. They'll lock up your money, and now that they have your money, they can plan their own schedule the way they want to. And if you're a flipper, that doesn't work at all.
well, it
Or even
doesn't.
not a
And
flipper, but
like,
just like doing it as a business, like that's another thing, right? It's like dealing with people, run companies that don't deal with customers because in the customer world is very different the way things run like you don't have to worry about deadlines really. Like it's rarely, for example, when my husband works with customers, it's rarely that a customer is like, I need it done by this date. They're usually like, the only time you see that actually happening is around this time, like I want my kitchen to be done before Christmas, right? Because I want to have, or like I have a birthday. But other than that, like I feel like in the investor world, contractors don't realize that it's like we have like budgets and deadlines. It's not like customers, there's no budget really. There's no budget and deadline when it comes to customers. And so it's a very two different types of contractors that you have to deal with, right? Because when you're dealing when for example, my husband deals with customers, it's very different, right? They have no budget, to be honest. They'll be like, oh, my budget is 20K. And then all of a sudden they're like, I want to bling it out on this and bling it out on that and bling it out on that. And all of a sudden another 10K appeared from nowhere. And you're just kind of like, you said that your budget was 20K and you just blew that like it was, like whatever, like,
so that's actually interesting. And I think when you well, I refer to them as consumer customers versus real estate investor customers, but 100% correct. Oftentimes, I think what happens with consumers, with homeowners that are getting something like a bathroom or a kitchen renovated, is that 9 times out of 10, there's going to be um, scope increases because you have the opportunity. And I'm not saying you're doing this maliciously as a contractor, but you have the opportunity to upsell them. Hey, by the way, how would you like an exposed vent hood as opposed to one behind the cabinets? Oh, I would love that. Well, yeah, guess what? That's just going to take 2 more weeks and another $1,000. So there's a lot of that. Like, it's a lot of emotion, and therefore extending deadlines is far easier because they're the ones that want the nicer stuff. To your point, as with investors, my scope of work on that kitchen is dialed in like long before they were talking about the kitchen. So, there's not a whole lot of time. And then my costs to delay the project because of an exposed hood are far higher than the cost of the hood. So I'd rather not do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm staying away from that because I know me delaying this project by another month has considerable impacts, negative impacts on my project. So yeah, that's always that's always a big difference between consumers and like real estate investors, indeed.
yeah. And but even like that, like contractors, because I would say majority of the contractors are used to consumers, right? You're used to like they don't really care about budgets, to be honest. Like they say at the beginning they do, but at least our experience, all of a sudden like they're like we say like, oh, this is the budget, let's say, I don't know, 500 for the vanity. And all of a sudden they want like the most expensive one. They're like, I want this $1,000 one that has like diamonds on them. And you're just like, you're going over your budget. It's okay. Okay.
Yeah,
You think
it's okay. I'll just refi the house.
so?
uh,
Yeah, it's great. But with these things, um, what kind of then mindset shifts have you gone through to like with all like everything that you've learned so far and just like business sense, investing sense?
Um, so the first eye-opening experience there is the concept of partnering and being able to do joint ventures and um, realizing that you're better off to have one slice of the watermelon than the whole grape. um, just pulling resources and using other people's talents to achieve a common goal. And that's definitely been the case with on the wholesale slash off market opportunities. I finding off market opportunities. We've done very well there with it's actually, again, I'd mentioned him again, Juan Fano. I think he's on here as well, but you know him. It is a pleasure working with him. On that end, we've actually partnered on certain projects as well, so that was great. I have other projects that I have partners with. So again, that idea that I don't need to do it alone. I don't need to just stay on to another job so I can qualify for one other um, um, conventional mortgage so I can do this flip with a bank. Like, that's not the right way to do it. If the deal is good enough, you can do it with hard money. And this is the most recent. This is only in the past, whatever it is, 6 8 months that I've started really, it clicked into me when I'm like, okay, I got to find better deals and more of them so that I can work with hard money and not worry about the bank. Like, I'm no longer
That's really
employable,
funny.
nor am I. Nobody's going to lend to me as a type A lender. So a lot of that has gone in. Relinquishing control is another thing, and I'm still struggling with that in many ways when things are not getting done. Developing a much higher level of patience, I'm struggling with that. Like, patience is not a virtue I was blessed with, and my wife is putting up with a lot of
I
it.
don't
But
think many of us are, especially when we're like have the entrepreneur mentalities. I feel like, us entrepreneurs are very like action taking, go, 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 and we just want to get things done.
yeah. um, there's what else? There was something about like partnering or developing relationships with people, and then you enter the world of meetups and real estate groups and Facebook groups. And I think that there's still, like, it takes me a while sometimes, but you do kind of sort through the fluff a little bit, and after a while, it's important to spend your time wisely with people that have committed to the same level of personal development or business development as you have. You can easily go down the rabbit hole and spend too much time with the wrong crowd, I think.
Yeah.
um
It really
I don't.
resonates the whole like being around like-minded, right? Like now that you're in it, you start realizing how important it is to be with like-minded people. And like that being said, like-minded for you, for me, like we all have like different things, and it's just like-minded people become, you don't realize like how important it is because like you said, like, if you're around, let's say, investors that buy a house once a year, you'll probably be one of those that buys once a year, you know? Whereas like if you're interested in growing bigger, going quicker, then you're gonna want to find like those kind of people that are in that same, so you're like motivating each other or, working together, like so many different things, right?
That's interesting. Yes, I think one way that I'm gonna use this to differentiate here is people that are looking at building a business. And I've come across many real estate investors that also have an active business, sometimes related and sometimes completely unrelated to real estate, but they apply the same principles of business development to their own business as they do to the real estate and business. That's of value to me. People that quantify their success in real estate by the number of doors that they own, not my cup of tea. It's just like, I don't know. Home Depot has more
No,
doors.
I know
Let's
what
be
you
honest.
mean because to be successful, you have to start thinking of your real estate as a business and running it as a business. It is very different.
Yeah.
Because even
Yeah.
like that, like for me, I felt like that was my shift that I did. I remember I kind of compared to like I used to be a landlord before. Now like my mentality is like running my real estate as a business. That's like a completely different ballpark.
And if landlording is your business, nothing wrong with that. Like that's a perfectly well. I mean, who am I to say? But I'm sure that there's people that own a lot of properties and they're long-term buy and holds. But as long as they consider it an active business, landlording is not a passive business. It becomes a passive business if you have built a business that if you've developed, you've had people and processes in place to deal with it on a daily basis, and you're removed. Yes, but otherwise, just owning property that you don't care about and you don't go by more than twice a year, that's not proper landlording, nor is that an actual business. You just own some property that that's when you're going down the slumlord line, in my opinion.
Yeah. And another point that you wanted to make, which was really funny because I also went through this too, was I was always with the mentality, same thing, like I'm gonna wait until I've, maxed out on my mortgages before I quit my job. And it's funny because once you start like running your real estate as a business, like you start running a business and you start realizing like how things work, it's exactly what you say, right? It's like, why am I waiting to quit my job when that's probably a bad sign? Like if you need your mortgage to actually help you make your numbers work, that's probably a problem actually.
Yeah.
That's a very big problem, because
That's
all business entrepreneurs actually never work on mortgages. Everything is actually, you start realizing like if you really want to run a business, you realize you're always working with all businesses or working with private money, working with partnerships, you know, and maybe you're getting like you're getting loans like from banks, but it's a whole different ballpark. Like you're not working in the world of like 1%, 2%, like that's for like homeowners, that's not for businesses.
yeah. I still have one project that's at 1.5%, and then I have projects that I'm paying like 12 and a half. I think that's still probably. I know that I've actually lent money and it is being lent out again, and then by the end of it, the end user is using it at about 20%. So there's such a big delta, and I applaud. I know who the end user is, who the end investor is in this particular case that's borrowing about up to 20%, and they're killing it, and that's fantastic. I love seeing that level of confidence. But yeah, you're 100% right. It's that mentality. I had that mentality myself. It's on the one hand, you know, developing, like getting emotional with the property, with the project itself. Oh, like you, especially like I was, build it myself. So I'm going to build it because I'm going to hold on to this goddamn thing for 20 years. Bullshit. I sold it last year after a year. No, so that's one thing. And then the other is, that silo mentality that it's just me. And then the only way that I can do this by myself, me, is with a bank, as opposed to a partnership that I can, get the silent money partner to hold a mortgage or whatever, or use hard money at the first stage, whatever it is. Like there's so many different options out there.
Yeah, I don't know why we're like born into thinking this is like a very I, and you have to do things alone. Because when you actually like start, like if you actually go and look at businesses, like look at a corporation, you have a board of directors, and majority of those board of directors are also the owners of the corporation. Like you have to work in teams to get anywhere in life, entrepreneur sense.
Yeah.
Like if you want to grow and be big, you have to be teaming up with people, doing partnerships, syndications, whatever, to like make things happen for yourself. And that's, yeah, it's like you feel like you have to like remove the ego, like let the I go away because realizing it's not about I and it's about like us working together to make things happen and to, like win together. And the youth can see the most successful, like it's funny because you see things like, for example, like Jeff Bezos, like everyone, like you hear of him but you don't realize like there's actually a lot of people around him, but for some reason he's the figurehead, that one that's like known, but it takes a lot of people to actually make it be what it is, right?
The idea of who not how, and having lots of who's that can, just like going back to whatever, to the Ford era. But I think everyone will acknowledge the fact that they didn't do it on their own. Was there some sort of talent? Like, that's not, I don't know. I'm probably more pragmatic, more realistic than that. I don't think I have any hidden talents that I haven't uncovered yet to reach, some sort of a genius level. But as far as developing some, my expectation of what a successful business is, I know that I need to partner, and I've accepted that, and I'm in the process. I'm seeing some hurdles. There are some projects that are not selling as fast as I wanted to. They're still on the market, whatever. But it is all part of it. So, yeah, yesterday I was actually pretty demoralized in many ways. I actually thought about this. I'm like, and then so, actually, I did mean to say just this part. You and I were talking about contractors that have done questionable things, and you still have to pay them. I really hope there's nobody here watching. They're about to enter the real estate market, and now they're being deterred by some of this more negative thinking. There's plenty of good contractors out there. My point is that, you have to be prepared to learn and develop these relationships. They may come at the cost of certain projects, taking a bit of a hit, certain levels of stress. Like, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah. And just something even though you just said, which is like we all go through, and I think you definitely have to have a like the mental strength for it, because when we're running businesses, we are going to be hitting highs, we are going to be hitting some good lows, And I think that's like part of the game of being an entrepreneur. And I think it's like that you mentioned that like sometimes you just like, like that, like things happen and it just like brings you to a low. But it's like, we know that we're gonna get out of that soon and it will happen, right? And it's, to be honest, the reason probably, let's say, why yours isn't selling is December. Wait until January.
That I was just thinking that. I'm like, yeah, I know I'm gonna get out of this in January.
Wait for
I
January to come. Actually, I'm
I
kind of
hope
curious to see how next year is gonna go. I think it's gonna be pretty actually good for the beginning of the year. So
it's I mean, there's value in, I don't know that I do this enough. I think, especially in the past few months, I've been so wrapped up in the actual projects and some of the things that I might very well preach about, and I haven't been practicing, and that I probably spent more time in the business than on the business, just putting out fires and that kind of thing. So amongst that, one of the things that I probably don't do enough of is, try to stay on top of news and material on the real estate market, and like in an effort to explore new markets. I don't do enough of that. But at the same time, I feel like, regardless of, unless you go to a really terrible town, like it's really dependent on one industry that just collapsed, I don't know, somewhere up north, and they're still hoping for the pulp paper mills to come back, which is not happening. The focus still needs to be on the deal itself and your ability to execute. So I feel like as long as you got those two dialed in, you're gonna be able to like finish your project on time and on budget. And then it's kind of still left up to speculation. If you make what you intended, that's great, move on. And if you make a lot more, it's just speculation from the market. It's, you could
100%.
do the perfect project and make exactly what you want, or you can make 2 or 3 times as much.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that you all of a sudden you were a genius.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And also like that, like not even letting those things get to your head, because I have to say these last couple of years that was past, like people probably think they're like amazing investors.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
really, like to be honest, it's like I say, like if you took these 2 years to invest, I think hopefully you're learning from all those mistakes, because sometimes that extra padding of money that you're getting from selling or whatever, like sometimes blinds you from the reality of things. And once the downturn, like, things start, let's say, not going as high, or especially if you're one of those that are going through the predictions, like, oh yeah, it's gonna go up like 20% next year, so I'm gonna buy it at this, and like, like that'll be like a rude awakening. And
yeah.
it's hopefully people are realizing like, yeah, there's lots of wins that happened in these last couple years, but still make sure you learn from all your mistakes, because it's sometimes very hard to learn from your mistakes when things go well, you know? And then the thing is, once things do go like not exactly the way you think they do, it will be really like, I think that will be like a shake to the core, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Use that potential additional profit to further develop your process and systems to, to be able to not be dependent on a market that's, yeah, that's as crazy as it is.
Mhm.
Um,
Because like
yeah,
you
I
said, it is
mean,
running the numbers and being like realistic about what it is. And if you make more, then amazing. You know, there's some people like that, they've made like tons, right? But that's because they were realistic of the numbers, you know, like if you're realistic with your numbers, then anything extra is just, you know, amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, I feel like I don't know, when things start to normalize or not have these crazy ups, I feel like there's gonna be a lot of people that will think that they're super awesome and they're the best at it, and then they're gonna be like sadly disappointed when it's like
Yeah, that's anything can happen. And normalized. I don't necessarily expect them to dip or like I've heard all kinds of people, especially there's been a few folks from the US that have come to, Canadian market's got to crash. It's got nowhere else but down to go. Well, they've said this a year and a half ago, a year ago, and then 6 months ago. And it's, I don't know
Yeah.
if there's going to be
No,
a,
I don't think that's happening. I think it's just people are way too optimistic, you know, like that, like, oh, go up another 20%. And then these kind of things screwing people over, right? Because it's like, they're like, oh, I did this last time, so it should do it again. It's like, you shouldn't be running with those kind of understandings, you know, because, you know, like that, there are people that I've seen that are starting to get screwed over now because they were way too optimistic with their numbers, and it didn't, and it's not working out for them. But again, like, but
often,
then as an
oftentimes
entrepreneur,
that's
you're
that
pivoting, right?
the like I think what I've noticed to similar to what you've said is people that are buying not so much just on the market, but they're buying at the fair market value, hoping for that additional bump instead
Mm-hmm.
of buying with some built-in equity through
Mm-hmm.
creative ways, through off-market, whatever it may be, find
Mm-hmm.
an edge that allows you to. So, if you're, and I was actually, I forget with who it was, but I was having this conversation about potentially buying something on the market very close to fair market value, but with serious potential to bump. So, like conversion plus addition, extension, like adding square footage. So now, like if the ceiling in that market supports going from a 2,000 square foot bungalow to a 3,000 square foot bungalow because of this nice L-shaped addition you're going to add, then it might make sense. Now you're looking for a very specific type of property. And if you only find it on the market, then you might as well buy it because you're going to force the appreciation, moving forward with that addition. Whereas if you're just doing a lipstick flip and you bought it on the market, likely in a bidding war, it's unlikely that you're going to be turning a whole lot of profit in the next 3 months when you throw it back on the market with new flooring and trim. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Yeah, those things are not really existing anymore now. And like, I don't know about you, but I've been noticing a lot of investors are really pivoting actually right now because of that, because we're having to pay market value for things now. It's now these big shifts that are happening. Like, okay, if I'm gonna have to pay market value, you know, am I, for example, looking for places that I can like tear it down and make it into like a fourplex or fiveplex or something, or you know, like people are going bigger now because like you said, like people are starting to pivot a lot and make changes because like that, because we are getting to a place where you're paying market value and you can't do anything. Like if it's a single family home and you're keeping it as a single family home, even if you're doing duplex, like even those two are kind of like getting iffy now. You know, it's like you got to go bigger if you're gonna do like you have to do bigger changes, like turn it into a fourplex or something for it actually to be able to pay market value, like you're saying.
well, and it needs to like, so I mean, I could probably make the argument that I know Hamilton fairly well. You're going to take a duplex, you're going to build a duplex in Hamilton. You need to still cash flow in some form. like, yes, the market rents in the mountain have probably gone up considerably. So on a typical 1,000 square foot duplex, like really well done, you might be able to get 25 upstairs and 21, 22 downstairs. I don't know, let's say 21 downstairs.
Wow, it has
And
changed a lot.
so it has gone up, but my point is that the entry point on the market for some of these homes that you could duplex is the 800 range. So you're going to buy at 800, you're going to put two and a bit into it to make it into a duplex. So you're at just over $1 million in cost plus holding costs. How much do you think you can really ARV this thing? And then at that point, will you still be cash flowing? There are certain, like, you may very well be able to refinance this thing quite high, but are you gonna cash flow? So what are you gonna do? You're gonna be stuck with it, paying out of pocket to hold it because you've refied it so high. And if you try to sell it, who's gonna buy it from you because they can't? So you know what I mean? Like, you still need to buy lower. You need to find a way to bring that down to stay within that cash flow. If you're gonna hold it, that's fine. If you're gonna flip it, you can't do that much to it so that the next buyer can't cash flow it because it's got to be an investor. I mean, I suppose it could be a homeowner that wants to a house hack, but you're probably catering to more of an investor. And if they can't cash flow it, they're likely not going to be able to justify paying a whole lot for it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I completely agree. It's just a lot of, I think like that, like we're hitting another pivoting point right now. You know, a lot of people are starting to pivot and change their strategies to figure out how to deal with this. Like you said, like the prices of houses. I saw an article actually, they were saying that, you know, the prices of houses are getting so high. Like there's still a lot of demand in the houses, but the rental, you know, is starting to like slow down, like it's not going as high. And so like you're saying, you know, you're not able to cash flow with rental properties or like let's say duplexes. I'm not sure what level, but you know, like you can't cash flow as well as you could before, you know, and it's like so now people are just yeah, things are changing and it's like trying to figure out and this is all our entrepreneur mindsets, right? Like okay, like this is a problem. Now we're here. Everyone's like in a process of pivoting, right? Like, what can I do to make, you know, this cash flow? Or now do I need to change my strategy? You know, like I feel like this is a lot in the air right now. It's just figuring out what can be done to still work within our circumstances.
I think, and I think where my mind went when you said this is that I do need to kind of clarify my approach is to always want to be quite liquid on any given project. So it's not that I'm not looking long term, but I'm not looking long term landlording on duplexes and triplexes. So I like if I get involved in it, I like the forced appreciation that I bring to the asset through the renovation phase. And I then will stabilize the building by renting it out for a year, but I don't look at it as holding it long term. Somebody else might. And when you start factoring in like people that look at year over year appreciation and mortgage pay down, okay, maybe you can justify putting money out of pocket to hold this thing. But that's just not me. I want to know that I'm
Well,
liquid all the time.
understanding the two kind of people we're talking about is true. So you and I, we're talking about a business, right? When we're
Mhm,
talking in
mhm.
a business sense, like our business needs to make money, like or else
Yeah.
we go bankrupt, right? But there are people that are there to like buy the house, you know, let it appreciate in value. You may be having to put a little money in, and it's okay, right? But that's not a business model. And like that's
That's a
just, you know, buying properties
lifestyle, like
and
yeah,
looking
a
after.
bonus.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's more like you're going more for the long-term effects, and you're probably buying a house maybe once a year, maybe once every 2, 3 years, whatever your strategy is. But when it
Mhm.
comes to a business, which is what we're talking about, basically, 'cause you and I are both in like business, we're entrepreneurs. Our business, sorry, my dog is right here, and he's just deciding to like move my screen over. But we're here to run a business, and like our business needs to make money. If we're gonna continue running our business, being able to support our families, our lifestyles, like run a business, it needs to make money. And so yeah, so that's it's I think it's also understanding like where we're coming from. We're talking as business owners, you know, that doesn't mean that there's other types of people that will do completely different strategies that doesn't matter if money's going out of pocket because their strategy is different. Maybe they're going for appreciation, right? They're going
Yeah.
for future appreciation that, yeah, you know, in the future it's going to make me this much money. Great. But obviously,
Oh,
as a
I've
doesn't.
heard and I've heard this on numerous occasions, and I don't want to be like picking on anybody because it's not a. I'm not going to make the argument that it's not the right mindset. I want to leave this for my kids. I want to leave a property for my kids. Well, okay, that's I don't know, legacy wealth, whatever you want to. It's not that I don't want to leave a property for. I have a four-year-old son. Like it's not that I don't want to leave him a property, but it's not my goal isn't to buy a whole home so I can leave him for him. Like I don't know if I can teach him anything, through his childhood and adolescence. That's great, but my goal isn't to leave him assets. Teach him how to earn assets and do his own thing. That's a different ball game. But again, that's just people's
And different,
prerogative.
different mentalities, right? Because like that is very true. I also kind of believe in that too. I would say like teach a man how to fish. If you give them the fish, like what is that
Yeah,
gonna do for you? What is that gonna do for them, right? Like, but again, like if your area is not to be a real estate investor in the sense of running a business, then obviously leaving a property to your children is probably a good thing, right? Because you're just at least you're giving them something. But
yeah,
if but if your priority is to like teach your children like how to like run a business or like to kind of be whatever their successful is and like learn how to be successful, then you want to teach those kind of qualities, be it, because all those skills are very transferable. You start realizing like just because you're learning how to do it as a real estate investor and running a business doesn't mean like your son has to also to go into real estate, but those skills that you learn of communication, of relationship building, of all these things, you realize how pivotal they are to get into whatever it is that you want to get into to become successful. And even it might not even be running a business because all that stuff also is very helpful in having a job. Like when you have a job, like you can go up in the ladders very quickly just because you're amazing at building those relationships, right? So it's just different
I
points
think
of view.
it's anything. Yeah, I think you've touched on exactly the two most the two probably the most important skills: communication and relationships. I think like anything that you want to achieve, what like I don't know if climbing a corporate ladder is what they'll want to do, or business, or not real estate. I don't know. I don't care what it is, but whatever it is that they want to achieve, I can agree more. Communication and people skills are highly important.
Mhm.
Communication, I think I'm pretty good. People skills, I hope he learns more from his mother. Uh, but no, uh, but no, nonetheless, yeah, no, that's 100% accurate.
Thanks, Juan.
Oh
Juan,
yeah,
who's
I
just saying that
see.
I was giving good information. Thanks, Juan. But yeah, it's also because like that. Like I also find it that people become like maybe they think we're being insensitive or something or like that. Like I noticed that people will always like, oh, I don't mean it in this way. Like I think understand the point of view that we're viewing things at, right? It's like we're talking as business owners, entrepreneurs, which when you're looking at a different scope that you're talking as like as not one, like maybe you're talking as an employee or you're talking as like a homeowner, like your points of view are very different to our points of view, right? Like we're focusing into different areas that may not be interesting at all to you, like you're like, I don't want to do that, like I'm so happy just buying my house, like buying a house every 5 years and then just one, giving one out to every kid, because it's like just makes my life easier and whatever it is. I don't know. So it's
Yeah,
just understanding points of view is also important because I feel like that, like people judge other people, but don't judge, like, as we're trying to obviously understand, like I try to understand you, you try to understand me so that we understand each other's point of view because the way you think is probably completely different to what I think, and then like it's just like I notice that happens a lot on the outside, like people who aren't entrepreneurs, I think they think we're like insensitive or something.
yeah. I think there is. in hindsight, there's a way to look at this and almost feel like I'm too self-centered in certain ways. I do have friends. I still consider them friends. I hope they do as well, but not people that I've dealt with. Like they're not involved in this, and I have not been in touch with them as much. And like you start losing that connection because there's less and less to talk about. There's less and less in common. Um, that's just the price of it. Like it's unfortunate, but not much that I can do about that at this point. Um, and it goes both ways. So
And it comes with the territory, and it's funny because again, like I feel like for some reason like entrepreneurs get persecuted for these kind of things, but it's understanding that it happens everywhere, right? Like for example, like that, like if you, for example, change your like that, you became, you're running a business takes like 24 hours in the day. Like you don't have a life, like, and then it is true when, if, like people are like, oh, you're never around this or or like getting upset. And it's just kind of like, really, it's like the little time that I do have, it's obvious, it's sometimes like that. Like you're going to be spending it with people that understand your problems.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
people like in the business world, like we go like that. We hit ups and downs like crazy. Like because we're running a business. Like you buy a house at let's say once every 5 years, you're hitting your lows, like maybe two lows and that's it. But imagine we are doing like 5 to 10
Mhm.
deals, whatever it is, let's say a year. Like you've like quadrupled to like 10 times your stress load. Right? And then so
You
it's also you just start being with like business people because be like, oh my God, Alex, like this and this happened. It was so stressful, and then you'll be like, oh my God, the same thing happened to me. Like it's because we can relate to each other because we're in that same bubble of understanding of what's going on, right? Where it's like if you tell someone else that, they'll be like, oh, that sucks. I feel bad that like see like they can't really give advice because they're not
Yeah,
understanding
exactly.
the
So
stresses that we go through and the craziness that we go through because it's not all like what is it, like sunshines and rainbows? No, it's like hard work.
sunshine and butterflies. uh, I think I'll mention this. TJ Ainsborough, that I'm pretty sure you've had him on the show as well, and him and I talk quite often, and we're contemplating having a podcast, a one-up podcast, because every time something happens to me, it's like, oh, this happened to me too, and it's always like a back and forth. But it's always, yeah, the craziest stories. And I guess the other thing that I was going to mention, because this is transformation time, so I think it's fitting to mention this. I used to golf. I used to golf not regularly, and I was not any good at it, but I golfed. Like I bought the set. I had the two, like I went out. I went out a few times a month. This was in my previous job. I haven't in the past 2 years. It's been lovely. I'm not spending 4 hours doing that nonsense anymore. Like if I'll try to get in an hour of workout every day, and then I'll slip for like weeks at a time, and then get back into it for a couple of months. But like being able to afford an hour to work out at 5 a.m. Now, I also have small kids, and my wife's seeing the brunt of that, but I'm trying to help as I can. But getting out for a workout early in the morning is one thing, but like spending half your day on the golf course, I can't fathom that right now, like at the cost of, what it is that I have to do. So it's just been really lovely, not like knowing that I haven't touched those damn sticks in 2 years. Uh,
It's funny how yeah, like how you shift, your mind just starts shifting, right? And then once you start, I don't know, finding that purpose, really enjoying what you do, it's just like sacrifices that you make aren't also sacrifices. Like let's say if you did like you love golfing, like you may not even like it doesn't even like you don't miss it because you're just like so busy with the things that you're doing and like trying to meet your purpose, whatever it is, your why that you're trying to like satisfy. It's so
golf
much
was the sport I love to hate, okay? But if you can even call it a sport, but anyway.
no, it's very interesting you say that because I would say from my husband, he had like very transformational. I mean, when we started his business 8 years ago, like he was a person that like partied, not partied, went out a lot, like maybe 4 times in the week. Like and it's funny because he's obviously an extrovert because I'm not that. Like for me, it's like once a month is good enough, you know. But when he started his business, I was actually very worried about him because I was just kind of like, you know, when you start a business, like your life changes, right? It's like you know, like running a business is a big thing, and I was wondering like how this would work. And especially like his friends were so important to him and like a very big part of his life that he and it was very interesting because like that like he found his purpose, like he really loved like actually running a business or like being in the business, I would say, because I felt like I ran it for him. I helped him out a lot. But in the sense of like the stuff that, like you said, he was good at, right? Like he loved going to like meet people and like doing the projects, you know, like he loved doing the renovations and seeing like his customers happy, right?
Mhm.
And it was very shocking to me because I always thought like, oh my God, he's going to like it's going to be a hard balance, right? Because that was like imagine like going from like hanging out with your friends 4 times in a week to basically it was zero. And it was zero. It's still zero, not zero. Like now it's
You
like
don't
now
let him out of the house at all, do you?
like now his socializing is through work more. But again,
Yeah.
it's because of like your mind changes, right? And it's like and you're wanting to be around like you just it's just a natural thing that happens. You're going to be like-mindedness happens everywhere. You know, like
Yep.
if you love playing board games and you're with a group of friends that are playing board games, you're with them for a reason because you like playing those board games. If you like to go to the bar, you're going to be with those. Like it is always very weird. I think I can tell you the one example where um people find it weird. For example, like I'm not a smoker, and my husband's friends, like they're all majority of them are all smokers, and um, they would always find it weird that like for example, like you know everyone goes outside for a smoke, and then in the winter I'm like, why am I gonna suffer with you guys when I don't even smoke? You know, like I'll stay here. You know, I'll wait for you guys. I can be left alone. You know, and it's
Yeah.
just like and then but then they would feel very awkward because they all smoked and I didn't, you know. And I
Hmm.
think that's always just how it's going to be. Like you doesn't matter, like like-mindedness doesn't is not a good thing or a bad thing. Like you just naturally gravitate to the people that are like you, right? And like
Yeah.
that, like I felt like they always felt it kind of weird me being around was because like they felt not weird, but it was like they felt bad for me, you know? Like they're like, oh, we're leaving her by herself in the bar or like the restaurant, and we're going outside to have a smoke, you know? And then for example, like one of them would have to sit with me, and I'm like, I'm okay, you know, like go have your smoke,
Yeah,
your
y'all
drink.
survived.
I'm like, if it's the summer, I'll come out with you guys, you know, but winter, I'm non-negotiable. I'm gonna stay here in the toasty warmness. You guys suffer out in the cold, you know? But it's
Yeah.
just like it's like it is in everything, you know, like even in drinking, like people that drink a lot don't like to be with the sober person because like the divides are different, you know. It's like it's the same thing. Like you run a business, naturally you start gravitating to business people because we just get each other, you know. And then it's like for people to understand that it's like it's not this nothing bad. It's just like you're going to be with like-minded people. That's all it is, you know.
Well, and it's even like that socializing after work. It was at times it can be for people. It can be an outlet, like a way to get away from and like, oh, now it's 5 o'clock is done, and then we do this. And I need to find better ways, or like I need to get better at unplugging. But I don't need the 5 o'clock to end my day. Like my day ends when I stop thinking about my day. My day ends when I start playing with my kids. And otherwise, like, projects and things are always in the back of my mind. Like there's always something happening. There's always conversations like this or more hands-on, more project related in the evenings. Like it doesn't end because it's 5 o'clock. And then there's also, I'm quite proud of the oddball Friday where I go biking at 12 o'clock and screw it, I'm doing this because I can. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. The good, there's, yeah. Oh, in anything that you do, you know, like there's the good and the bad. Like you will sacrifice in certain things, but then you do have other freedoms in other ways too.
yep.
Um, so it's just doing. to be honest, like
I,
what you like, you know. As long as you're
I,
happy with
I,
what you do.
let me take the opportunity to give a big shout out to my buddy John Corradetti, who's on here now. And if I hope he doesn't mind me saying, but it is my understanding that today's his last day at the job because he's
Oh,
taking the plunge into real estate investment full time as well. He's
oh my God,
also not only a good friend of mine, but
congratulations.
he's also doing great work with the kitchens, and he's installed kitchen. Him and his partner have done many of my projects and a lot of other investors. So he's going to be focusing on his kitchen business and real estate. So screw it, I'll do it anyway, Johnny.
Well, congratulations, John. That must be so exciting. You're gonna come be a little stress ball just like the rest of us.
Yeah, he's gonna relax. He's been running, so he's got many projects. He's done very well so far in real estate. He's been running his kitchen business as well as a full-time job for, I guess, I don't know, a number of years now. So I think he's gonna be relaxing now. Yeah.
That's awesome. Actually, that's true though. To a certain extent, well, I guess it depends. I mean, to a certain, like for example, for me, it's like I felt like I had two jobs. Now I have one. So I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like I'm working like a normal job now. It's not as crazy as it was before. Like I feel like having a day job and doing real estate like is insane. Especially if like that, if you're growing it like as a business. I don't know. I felt like I was going nuts. I went through
Yeah.
bigger highs and lows because of having a job, just because you're like, I don't know, like mentally switching back and forth is also hard. Don't you find it hard to switch back and forth? I
Well, so I was actually going to make that exact point in that before I had a day job. So let's say that my day job would, and mind you, I was in sales and I was on the road quite a bit, and it allowed me some flexibility. But let's suppose that I was focused on my day job 9 to 5, and then afterwards it was a given that I would have to focus on real estate. Whereas now, like being able to give all my best energy to real estate, whether it's 9 to 5 or more, but at least when I am at home and I'm able to, let's say, unplug completely, and I am with my family, there's nothing else distracting me. There's nothing else in my mind. If I'm able to just put the business aside, there's not an additional source of concern, I guess.
Oh, but
Um,
but wouldn't you have like real estate stuff happening during the day that you'd have to deal with? Like for me, it was very struggle because it was also two completely different things, like real estate and I was like a software developer. So like for me, or I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing, but I really struggled to switch. Like sometimes like I'd have to deal with a real estate thing in the middle of the day. And then it was just like, and then switching back to work, I was like, what project am I working on? What the hell is happening in this thing? Like, where was I? I don't know. I struggled hard.
yeah, I mean, I can appreciate that. I'm going to probably make an assumption because I don't know the first thing about software development, but I can probably assume that you were working on things that required extensive attention, like for like at least an hour at a time. You had to focus on that one project. I was in technical sales, so like, a good portion of my day, like I would only, the highest return on my time would only be about half an hour in a conversation with a customer that day. The rest would be driving around and preparing some quotes, like it was, again, highly flexible. So if I needed to make a stop, if I needed to make a phone call real estate related, it wasn't like a huge hindrance. It wasn't interrupting like an engineering process. It was sales related, and it was highly flexible. So it allowed me that flexibility.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. Yeah, because it was like, to be honest, it was like very mentally draining because it's like my job where it's like mental, like my brain was being used, and then having to like deal with, because obviously in real estate you're also super mentally draining because you're usually dealing with like things that are not like the regular everyday what other people are used to deal with. Like we're usually dealing with like you know other like problems that don't come up in the normal like day to day of like buying a house that like a homeowner would deal with. So I felt like my brain was going to explode some days.
I'm probably gonna add, and I think it needs to be said because it'd be unfair to ignore this, is that as I started getting less and less motivated by my current job, I probably became less and less efficient at it. Um, it wasn't so much outright lack of care, but like there was, you know, it
Having
was a
fun
business
knowing.
development. Pardon me.
Oh no, finish what you're gonna say.
It was a business development role that generally requires you to do more and think outside the box and find more inventive way. And I was not passionate about it. So I knew that I wasn't doing it justice anymore. After, like in the past few months, I had to cut the cord pretty hard because in the last few months while I was still there, it got to a point where I felt like I was being unfair to my employer. And not that I didn't care, but like, okay, let's put it this way. It was a large, like multi-billion-dollar business. I probably wasn't making that big of an impact, but I was not being fair in some ways to my manager at the time, to other colleagues that had numbers to report. It was a combination of things. The previous year I had done very well and I didn't feel like it was compensated. So like, I don't know, this moves into my decision to go after a certain level of entrepreneurship, and it ended up being real estate. That's just a vehicle. Um, but it had to do a lot with circumstance and like what had happened to me previously, and you know, had some bad experiences in some work scenarios, moved around a little bit, and then had an opportunity to do very well. I did very well. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I think I surpassed that year's budget by about 35% or something stupid. Like it was considerable for that territory and those industrial equipment sales. It was a considerable increase, but my yearly increase was about 4%. So that's when it dawned on me, like, man, this is not right. Like, this is not sitting well anymore.
Yeah.
uh,
And I think it's just to be honest, I think we can only really focus on one thing is what it comes down to, you know? And it's like when you're really enjoying what you do, like all you want to do is put your time to that.
yeah.
And once you see all the benefits of running your own business and just seeing kind of like what you can accomplish, you know, I don't know about you, but uh, before I felt like people, it's like they make it seem like it's really hard to make money. And I don't believe that anymore. Like to me, money is kind of like not really like I don't know, it's a lot easier to make money than they make it seem like as an entrepreneur and faster. Like for me, for example, like I was able as a part-time an entrepreneur, and a real estate investor, I was able to double my salary in a year. And I was just kind of like, man, if I can do that part time, I was like, what can I do? What can I do full time? You know, and it was just kind of like if you find your why and you really enjoy what you do, money isn't actually that hard to make. It's like it's your motivation and interest in it.
The dollar, exactly. I think
Not
if I
interest
were
in
to,
money, I mean interest in what you do. Because I just realized that kind of sounded weird. It's not your interest in money. I mean, like your interest in what you do in your business is what actually takes you far.
and that's
And
what I was going to say. I think I understand what you mean. And if I were to add anything to that, is to say that, like, it's not the dollar figure itself, it's the process and bettering that process to allow me to still own an active business, but allowing me to start removing myself. So buying back. So the time becomes a lot more important than the dollar figure itself. The utility of things. I think I like this is almost a little bit silly because in hindsight, when I look at it, I'm still not. It doesn't sit well with me. But I wanted to buy a new bike, a new bicycle, a cyclocross, whatever, kind of a road bike thing. And I couldn't find it. And I've walked into these stores and I had a budget in mind, and anything within my budget, which was like an entry level decent bike. They're like, yeah, okay, no problem. You can commit now and you might be able to get it by the end of 2022. 2022. I could commit to a fucking bike. Sorry, but it's a bike. To be honest. Come on.
they ain't
And,
here.
right. So, so I ended up buying up twice the amount of bike that I need, meaning that it's like carbon fiber. It was twice the price as well. It's more bike than I would ever really use. but they had it in stock. And it's not because I just can't afford it, but like I saw the value in getting back into biking. I needed it now, or I needed it not next year potentially. I
Yeah.
needed it at the beginning of the summer. And it, like I just pulled the trigger on that. Whereas any other time I would have hemmed and hawed about it and I don't know, try to make my own bike or something.
But I think that's also something that happens with this, like that, with this like personal development and learning how to run a business and like changing our mindsets. You start really actually learning exactly what you said, right? Like you start realizing, is it worth my time and is it worth my money? Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
start becoming like really cognizant of like not wasting time and money and being like, I need this for a purpose now. Like I don't know, you become like, they teach you to become an action taker in real estate. It starts coming out in all parts of your life too, because you
That's
just kind of
exactly it.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that, like I want to start biking today, not next year, like,
Yeah.
so it's happening and I'm going to get it done whatever way it takes. And that's almost like that's the same thing in an entrepreneur mentality, right? It's like, I need to get this done. I need to meet whatever, like get this project, get this done. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it done, like it's just
Yeah.
happening. And it's something that you just start learning as being as a business person. Like I don't have time to be wasting my time, my mental strength on like thinking if I want to do this or not. Like it's like I want it and it's getting done. Like
Yeah.
like now that's how it's kind of has become.
So actually, that's come out. That's very interesting. I'm gonna make this point, even if it's gonna take a little more time here. But I've had a discussion with somebody that was looking at doing a flip, and it started out with them asking me, "What is your cost per square foot of installed drywall in trying to finish a basement?" And like at first, like I didn't want to just jump down this person's throat with the answers that it's the answer being that it's almost irrelevant. But like I try to, okay, why are you looking at this? And in the end, I try to drive it to the point where like you're probably asking the wrong question, because unless you do it yourself, which is a whole different discussion, unless you do it yourself, the best money you're going to spend on that is somebody that is on somebody that's reliable and can get it done on time. My point is, the more time it takes you to finish a project, the more things can go wrong, the more risk you're taking. So like move fast and break things. Like get it done, get it out of the way, get it out of your mind. This bike thing, like I knew I was looking for one, I needed to buy one. I didn't want to spend the whole summer looking for a bike so I can start biking in the fall. I wanted to know that I have it. When I want to go biking, it's there, it's ready. So, that's exactly it. Like that mentality is applicable in business as well as in personal life, to allow you to then focus on more important things, whether it's spending time with my kids or business related matters. But the bike is no longer a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting how we start, like the skills you start learning in business, they start kind of going into your personal life too, to be honest, because of that. Like you just start realizing how important your time is, and or like let's say maybe like your health. Like let's say in that sense you're like, I want to start exercising and this is the best way to do it. And I mean, like, do I want to get healthy now or in a year from now?
Yeah. Well, and it's like I sort of committed to doing an exercise every day, and I love running, but like it's taking a toll on my lower back. So I'm like, I need a bike, because every other day I'm gonna go running, and then every other day I'm gonna whatever. It never
Yeah,
ends up being 7 days a week, but I'm
yeah.
doing it 5 to 6 days a week. So I think it's pretty good still.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And so last question. So where do you see yourself? What are your plans in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh boy.
Realistic or personal, whichever ones you want to talk about.
uh
We're gonna start deciding right now.
5 to 10 years in what is it in 5 to 10 years I want to be uh riding the Cabot Trail with my son. And in 10 years, maybe like in 5 years, I don't know, he might be only 9 years old, but in 10 years, I want to do the cross Canada bike ride with him.
Well, that'll be
uh,
awesome.
yeah, no, these are all, I don't even know if he's really going to take to biking, but anyway. um, Yeah, no, I think I'm seeing the value in getting involved in bigger projects where you can have bigger teams involved and therefore bigger problems to solve versus the small details that are time consuming, related to some of the, flips or like, single family type. So from a real estate investment point of view, development is very appealing, using trying to implement certain energy efficiencies, technologies, whatever it may be, like solar. There's some other concepts that I've been sort of researching, and that's part of my problem with being so involved with these projects right now and being in the business, is that it's taken me away from trying to develop other or yeah, research on other things of interest for me. So that's definitely an area of interest, development, but with additional features such as energy efficiency. And then, yeah, purpose-built multifamilies. Again, I look at those as a business. They're not as speculative as residential real estate, meaning single families. Even lending is done as a business. Obviously, you don't get conventional mortgages, but they also look at its ability to generate a profit versus just its increase in market because of speculative first-time home buyers. So yeah, a combination of those two. I would say development and multifamilies.
Hmm. I think we're all going in that direction. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm also in that direction too, actually.
I mean, it's
Where we
it's
started
the natural
recently.
progression
But
in many
how we
ways.
started leveling up, right? Like we started around the same time, and I feel like a lot of us that started in the same time are like that's starting to get to our next levels, right?
The class of 2020, or is that how it works? COVID class.
COVID class, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so much fun to chat with you and see how things are going and get to an insight into your mind.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thanks, folks, for tuning in. I do see there's some. If you guys need a tour guide for the Cabot Trail, I'm your guy. You have to do this Skyline Trail too. So I have been on the Cabot Trail, but we drove it with my wife and I a number of years ago. And since then, I've seen people biking on it, and I've always been into it. So I definitely want to come back and bike the Cabot Trail, and stop at Meat Cove for some of the best clam chowder.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. It was so nice to have you on, Alex. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye.